When Adrian Hale returned home without announcing his arrival, the mansion did not greet him with warmth. It greeted him with silence, the kind of silence that feels practiced, deliberate, almost trained. Adrian had built his fortune on noticing what others ignored, and this silence immediately unsettled him. The marble floors reflected his tired face as he removed his coat, choosing not to call out. He wanted to see his home as it truly was, when no performance was required. His business trip had ended early, after a deal collapsed, under the weight of betrayal, and betrayal had a way of sharpening one's instincts. Upstairs, faint sounds drifted down the hallway. His son Noah's voice, soft, hesitant, nothing like the laughter Adrian remembered. He followed the sound quietly, stopping just short of the nursery door. Inside, the nanny Clara stood with her back to the door. Her voice was calm but cold, each word measured like a verdict. Noah sat on the edge of his bed, shoulders hunched, small hands clenched in his pajamas. "You don't cry," Clara said flatly. "Your father doesn't like weak boys." Adrian felt something tighten in his chest. He had never said those words, never believed them. Yet here they were, being placed into his son's mind like stones in a pocket, slowly dragging him under. Clara continued, listing rules that had nothing to do with care and everything to do with control. How? Noah must speak when he could ask questions. Why affection was a privilege he had not earned. Adrian watched his son nod, not in understanding, but in surrender. Then Clara reached out, not to comfort, but to adjust his posture, gripping his shoulder too firmly. In that moment, Adrian understood something devastating. Harm does not always leave bruises. Sometimes it reshapes a child's understanding of love. His wealth had bought security systems, elite schools, and the best help money could find, but it had blinded him to presence. He stepped back silently, his mind racing. Confrontation would be easy. Truth, however, required patience. And Adrian Hale was about to uncover just how long this truth had been waiting. That night, Adrian did not sleep. He reviewed footage from hidden security cameras he had once installed to protect against outsiders, never imagining the threat lived inside. What he saw unfolded like a slow-burning fire, missed meals framed as discipline, isolation disguised as education, affection withheld as punishment. Clara never raised her voice. She never needed to. Her control was quiet, efficient, devastating. By morning, Adrian had made a decision that went beyond firing an employee. At breakfast, he joined Noah at the table, something he had not done in months. The boy froze, eyes flicking instinctively toward Clara, who stood nearby, smiling politely. Adrian placed a hand over Noah's, gently, firmly. "You don't need permission to speak here," he said. Clara's smile tightened. Over the next hours, Adrian dismantled her authority without raising his voice. He questioned routines, contradicted false rules, and openly showed affection, small acts that made Clara visibly uncomfortable. Finally, in his study with evidence laid bare, Adrian confronted her. She did not deny it. She justified it. "I made him strong," she said. Adrian replied quietly, "You made him afraid." Security escorted her out before noon, but the real work began after she left. Noah did not run into his father's arms. Trauma does not vanish with justice. So Adrian stayed. He learned to listen without correcting, to apologize without defending, to rebuild trust brick by brick. Wealth could not undo damage, but presence could heal it. Weeks later, Noah laughed again, unsure at first, as if testing whether joy was allowed. Adrian realized then that coming home quietly had allowed him to hear the truth, and seeing it had changed everything. The house felt different after Clara left. Not quieter, but uncertain, as if the walls themselves were waiting to learn new rules. Adrian noticed it in the way Noah hesitated at doorways, in how he asked permission for things that required none, in the careful way he watched faces before speaking. Healing, Adrian realized, was not an event but a practice, and it demanded more of him than any boardroom victory ever had. He began by changing his own habits. Mornings were no longer rushed affairs of coffee and calls. They became slow, deliberate rituals. Adrian cooked breakfast badly at first, burned toast, eggs too runny, but Noah watched with a small, confused smile. as if witnessing a miracle performed by an unfamiliar magician. Adrian talked while he cooked, not about lessons or expectations, but about ordinary things, the way rain sounded on the roof, how mistakes were part of learning, how strength did not mean silence. Noah listened, absorbing tone more than words, slowly testing whether this new language of warmth was real or temporary. At school meetings, Adrian sat closer, asked better questions, noticed the subtle signs teachers had missed. At night, he read aloud, even when Noah pretended to be too old for it, and he stayed until sleep came naturally, not through fear but comfort. Still, shadows lingered. One afternoon, a glass shattered in the kitchen, and Noah flinched hard enough to drop to the floor, hands over his head. Adrian knelt beside him, heart breaking anew, and said nothing at first, because sometimes silence, when chosen with care, could be kind. He waited until Noah's breathing slowed, then said softly, "You're safe. Accidents are allowed here." The words felt small, but they landed like anchors. Days turned into weeks. Laughter returned in fragments, then in full, unguarded bursts. Noah began to ask questions, not the cautious kind, but the curious kind. And in those questions, Adrian saw the boy he had almost lost. The truth about the nanny had been painful, but the deeper truth was harder still. Love cannot be delegated. It must be lived. And as Adrian watched his son run through the garden, laughing without fear of correction, he understood that coming home quietly had not just revealed a secret. It had given him a second chance to be the father his child had always needed. Time did not erase the past, but it softened its sharpest edges. Adrian learned this on an ordinary afternoon when Noah came home from school with a drawing clutched tightly in his hand. It showed two figures standing under an uneven sun, one tall, one small, both smiling in ways that were imperfect but unmistakably real. Noah placed it on Adrian's desk without a word, then waited. Bracing himself for judgment that never came, Adrian pulled his son close. Not urgently, not desperately, but with the steady confidence of a father who had finally learned how to stay. In that moment, Adrian understood that trust had begun to return. Not because he demanded it, but because he earned it daily. He no longer tried to compensate with gifts or grand gestures. Instead, he showed up at school events, at bedtime, in the quiet spaces where fears usually grow. Some nights Noah still woke from dreams he could not explain, and Adrian sat beside him until dawn if necessary, reminding him that strength could look like asking for help. The mansion slowly transformed from a symbol of success into a place of safety. Laughter echoed where silence once ruled. Adrian also changed beyond the walls of his home. He reduced his workload, delegated what once fed his ego, and redefined what wealth meant to him. Power was no longer control. It was responsibility. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky gold, Noah asked a simple question. "Why didn't you see it before?" Adrian did not lie. He said, "Because I thought providing was enough. I was wrong, and I'm sorry." Noah nodded, not in pain, but in understanding. That was forgiveness beginning its quiet work. The truth about the nanny had been revealed in a single moment. But the truth about fatherhood unfolded slowly, day by day. Adrian knew he could never change the past, but he could protect the future. And as he watched Noah fall asleep peacefully, unafraid of footsteps in the hall or rules whispered in the dark, Adrian felt a rare kind of success, the kind no money could buy. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that presence matters more than power and love more than control, then stay connected with us. Subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories that reveal hidden truths, heal unseen wounds, and remind us what truly makes a family whole.